Welcome back to episode 8 of Get Real with
gosh.
Jack and Cindy. I mean, we're like legit. They said most podcasts don't make it past the 7th podcast. Dude, number 8.
Is anybody out there? Is anybody out there? We
So-
don't care.
so
We're
anyway,
here anyways.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I am Cindy Morrison here with the wonderful Jack Wallace.
I don't know about the wonderful, but yet again, Jack Wallace.
Oh, I'm loving the purple.
Thanks.
Very nice.
Thanks. My favorite color.
How did I not know that?
Mm-hmm.
I know it now.
There it is. I love purple.
Well, today we're going to talk about how you get your house on the market. We're going to walk it from, all right, you've decided to sell
Mhm.
until you get an offer.
And what to expect. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
expectations
a period
are
that we
set.
don't talk about a lot. It seems like we talk a lot about, we talk about some of it, but like really how does the process work? What to expect when, and all those kind of things.
Yeah. So we want to walk you through it, set some expectations, and it may vary a little bit if you're in a different state or how maybe other realtors do it, but most of what we're going to explain is pretty generic. Yeah. So, and of course my notes just went away. Isn't that how it works? All right. So what to expect when you list your house? First thing you're going to want to do is
clean it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that sounds really silly, but just clean it. Or get someone to come in and clean your house, because I cannot tell you, there have been so many times when, and it doesn't have to be the very beginning of the process, but you need to really know you're going to have the house as clean as possible by the time the lockbox goes on. Actually, by the time the photos are done. And even photos, you can get away with quite a bit. Honestly, a lot doesn't show. But when people are walking through your houses, the baseboards, the ceiling fans, the things that you don't normally really take care of all the time, they need to be taken care of.
And I will help with a lot of things. I am not a housekeeper. I am not a landscaper. I am not going to mow your grass. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've done this for so many years that I've done all of those things. I've caulked windows. I've painted trim. I've done sheetrock repair.
Oh, yeah. No. I always have a guy. Like, no matter what you need done, I have a guy or a girl that can do that for you. I will help you stage. But you're right. Even before you start looking for a real estate agent, it really is great to have them come into a clean home.
Absolutely. That's such a basic thing. And it sounds kind of silly to say that, but like that is probably, if I could say the one thing that people probably underestimate, like people want to do painting and crazy stuff. I'm like, I don't want you to do all that. I just want you to have this house clean. Like
no ring on the bathtub.
Yeah. Because people honestly, like, it's already kind of, you're putting yourself you have to put yourself, like we've talked about before. If you're thinking as a seller, like the buyer, you don't want to walk in and think about living in somebody else's mess. You just don't.
Right.
And even the thing I think that people sometimes don't really wrap their brain around is, for example, it's been amazing to me at times. There have been people that their house was not well maintained. It was not meticulous by any means. But we would go to other houses and they would be so critical about how dirty their house was. I was just kind of like, okay, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Cobbler has no shoes.
It's so interesting. So I think that it's like, you really have to get very critical about that and really look in ways you've never looked before, or have a professional person come that does what I call a sparkle clean, like where it really shines and sparkles, because you can get more money from that than any other thing you can do before you get your house listed. I really do believe that. I think
I like that you said that first, because honestly, that was second on my list after hiring a real estate agent, because the agent's going to tell you to clean your house. They should, at least. But I'll bet you if you took 10 different realtors and sent them into a house that wasn't clean, even though they already had the comps,
prices go down.
That I bet you they would give you a lower price of what your house is worth than if it's clean.
It infers deferred maintenance. It makes people think that you have not taken care of the house. And there's some people just are great, but they're just not the best housekeepers. I mean, that's okay. It's
Yeah.
not like, I mean, it's your house. It's fine. It's not a judgment. It really isn't a judgment. We're not here to judge. We're here to sell. But if they walk in and they see that the floorboards are really dusty, which who doesn't have? I have dusty floorboards. I don't. Sorry, the person who cleans my house would really get offended by that. I don't really. I mean, she does a great job. God love her. She keeps my life in check, and that's really important to me. But for people that don't, that's not that big of a deal too. Having dusty floorboards is no big deal. But when you go to sell it and someone sees that, they just automatically think, well, if their floorboards are dusty, how do they maintain their house?
And
You know, what
agents
am I
are
not
going to
seeing?
tick, 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 check, check, check,
Mhm.
what you've done and what you haven't done.
Right.
So yes, clean, number one. Second, you're going to find an agent. And what do you think should be the best process for doing that?
For finding an agent,
Mhm.
you know, I think it's
Besides
really
choosing us, by the way.
it's referral, and it's really referral. And then, like, you know, we are all a part of a community. We all live within a community, and you know people in your community that you do, you know, you're on a school board with, or you're on a committee with, or you just like, you know, playing basketball with. I mean, whatever, and you really connect with them. I think that's great because you have a connection with them, but you need to go one step further and then really look up, you know, either reviews or just look at their presence online, look and see how long they've been doing it. You know, what people say about them. I think there's so many opportunities now to research those kind of people that I think that's really, but I think really using the people who use you. I mean, like if
Yeah.
somebody, you know, if somebody comes into your dry cleaning, you own a dry cleaner, and they come in every week and you really like them and they always have their real estate badge on, and you like, that's a great, I think there's a lot of different ways, but I think that if you don't have those kind of society people that you know from your social circle, not society people, but social circle, then referral.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because they say,
definitely.
everybody knows like 8 to 10 agents. So I think it is hard maybe when you have so many friends
Mhm.
in there. So again, yes, I agree with you. Asking your friends, who did they have a good experience with?
And for realtors, the one thing that studies show that, like, 4 out of 5 people use the realtor that talked to them last.
Interesting. Ooh, I'm going to start having the last appointment always.
Yeah, and I don't mean, no, I mean the last person they interacted with.
Oh,
The last
I thought you
person
meant
who
they were
said
interviewing several.
no,
Oh, but
just
that
the
makes
last
sense.
person, because it, like, that's on their mind. So, you
yeah.
know, that it is important to be talking about real estate. You know, I'm terrible about this, but wear your name badge, because people don't know that you are, or they don't think of you that way. They think of you as the fellow dad or the fellow mom, or the, you know, they don't think of you as Cindy Morrison realtor, you know.
Mhm.
Or
Now, I also think it's important to look, some people work as a team. So
Mhm.
you may hire this agent, but you're actually working more with their team members. You
And that may work for you and it may not, and you
Mhm.
need to ask that. And so if they're a team structure and you really like, if I really like Cindy, but if I go on and then I'm really going to be dealing with Jack, and I don't like Jack, who would not like Jack? But
I
if I
know
don't like
everybody loves
Jack, no, they
Jack.
don't. But if I didn't, then I would want to know that that's how that structure works, because the teams are structured so differently. You know, for John and I, when we were a team, we always thought we should do the work of 3 people as 2 people instead of doing the work as 1 person.
Yeah.
And so I'd be the lead with somebody, or he would be the lead with somebody. So you would pretty much just talk to me for the most part, but through even through osmosis of, you know, living together and being in the same office, we kind of knew what was basically going on with the other person's deal. And so if somebody had to step in for whatever reason, they could.
Sure.
And you knew, like, call one first, and if you can and it's an emergency, go to the second person. So that's how we worked. But a lot of them, it's like, I do this part, I coordinate the photo, and then Sue does the listing, and then Joe does the photos, and you just need to know what the structure is.
And I even did that today on a listing appointment. I had somebody, but I may have 6 or 7 open houses on a Sunday. So I said, I will do your first open house, but after that, it may be, these are generally the people who cover my open houses.
Which is good because they bring their own buyer pool.
Yes,
It's actually really
absolutely.
good to have it's actually good to have some different people on opens because they go to their social media and their buyers and they talk it up. And so you're actually getting people that are different than what I only bring. So I think it's really actually the best thing for a listing to have different, people that are, and that's sometimes that's a little different than a team because that's people from within our brokerage.
Right.
But some teams, that is exactly how it works. So
yeah. So I think it's important to, set those expectations and ask those questions. Let's see. What should you expect agents to bring to that meeting, whether it's an interview or whether it's, you just know this is going to be the person and you're going to hire them?
Right. Well, the thing everybody wants is comps. They want comparable properties. They want an idea of, it's very difficult and you're on the spot. I'm sort of a pricing specialist. That's kind of my deal. I really
very,
love
very
pricing.
good at that.
I mean, and I don't have a crystal ball by any means, but it's like, the art and science of years and years of experience. And I love numbers and the stories that numbers tell. So, the comps are that's what you're trying to take all the numbers of the comparable properties and what they've sold for, and then match up what's the most what's the most different. This buyer, just because this one buyer existed 4 months ago, that doesn't mean that they're in the market right now, but it's a pretty good indicator if you have 3 or 4 of those that was in the last 3 or 4 months, that those kind of buyers tend to be in this area at this price point.
Same comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges. In other words, the age of the house, how many bedrooms you have you done updates, when it was built, all of those things go into the comps. So having that is super important.
And somebody who really understands the nuances of area, houses, new age, does it make a difference? Some neighborhoods, a pool is absolutely it's nothing, doesn't mean anything to anybody. And in some neighborhoods, it's an expectation that you have a pool. So, those kind of things that a good agent, an experienced agent, or somebody, even a newer agent who has good direction within their company would know how to place that.
Right. So one of my secret sauces, in a perfect world, it doesn't always happen because somebody will call me and say, oh, by the way, we need to meet tomorrow about listing my house.
Right.
But
and you're like, yes,
yeah,
I'll be there.
And I will be there. But what I try to do in a perfect world is I actually put together a packet that I leave on their porch. So I'm not sitting in that appointment selling Chenoweth and Cohen or selling myself. So it'll have a copy of the contract, just so, in their spare reading time before they go to sleep, they can look through that. I'm not sure how many do, but if they have questions, especially if they're an architect or an attorney or a doctor, a lot of times they want to see all that. Engineers, yep.
Fine, yeah.
And then I have a whole tear sheet on me, about my social media, being on this real estate reality TV show, just TV background, so they feel they know me. A tear sheet on Chenoweth and Cohen, the brokerage, since we are local and family owned. And I'll put the comps in there, but I don't put, this is exactly what your house should sell for, because there are a lot of things once we sit down and talk about, I can give you a range and then that can help us narrow it down. But I try to set things up before the appointment.
That's a good idea. I don't do that. That's a good idea. I will say though, I think maybe if I go to a listing appointment knowing I have the listing, which is I think kind of where I was before.
Yes.
If I'm going as an interview, then I think, all those things are important. I think one thing that's also important when you do an interview is like, what do you do other than real estate? What are your interests, your nonprofits, your, all those kind of things, because I think that is something people kind of want to know who you are a little bit.
And they'll also know your sphere of influence. So if you have kids who are in the PTA, maybe there's a lot of kids in this neighborhood. Maybe she'll know somebody in her sphere of influence.
It's kind of interesting because, like, you don't ask that of your attorney.
Yeah.
Like it's or your dentist, but it is an interesting thing because and I've never thought about it quite like that, but that's right. It's like, because of the fact that it is kind of like, well, their sphere of influence is going to be more towards what, the demographic buyer might be of this house, or just because I believe in your mission, we believe in the same things, and I have a good feeling about you, and because it's a very personal relationship, it's like, you're really, it's hard to explain it, but
You really
you
become
really
friends
kind of
through the
become,
process.
and if not friends, friendly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you definitely, and you know, you have to be able to be sort of honest about things that maybe you aren't honest with other people, like, you know, your financial situation at times, or your emotional situation in your relationship sometimes.
Yep.
I mean,
If you're in the middle of a divorce.
honestly have found out people were getting a divorce before their spouse did many times.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just part of the business where, you know, somebody kind of trusts in you and says, this is kind of what's going on with me. And I need help because we've got to get this house sold, but I don't even know whether it's possible for me to leave yet. I mean, like, I know that's
Right.
really, so it's like, you know, those things are so personal. So sometimes you got to come to those terms too.
And we are bound to not tell anybody those things.
No.
So, you know, it's kind of like
No.
talking to your psychologist or I guess your priest, you know, we can't tell anybody.
But you have to trust. And
Yeah.
you know, because a lot of people aren't supposed to do a lot of things, but you really need to have trust with people. And yeah, absolutely.
And I think if you are in interviewing process, write some questions down. I mean, even if you Google it, but some things like, you know, you wouldn't say it this way, but do you just stick a sign in my yard and go away and I'm never going to see you again until the closing table? Or do you do some things in between there to help market the property? Or, you know, what are you going to help me on with staging? And
well, like you and I talked about in the first podcast, hope is not a strategy.
It is not a
not
strategy.
for selling your house. Like somebody who's just going to put it out there and then say, I'll be here to help. I mean, you know, and a lot of the things that we do, you don't see as the seller. You know, that's the one thing too. Like we've almost made the medicine so good that people don't understand that, you know, how, you know, it's like people stop taking medicine because they think they're cured. It's like we've made things so easy in some ways with our processes that people kind of go, well, it just sort of happened. Well, a lot was going on behind the scenes. So
yes.
and you know, so let's say you've got the comps, you've discussed them with the person, you've come to terms, you've decided what the commission rate will be, how it'll split between the buyer and the seller agent, and then you need to talk to them about how you want to handle the showings, which we'll come back to in a minute. But then the next phase is going to be that you sign the paperwork. That can be on the spot and by hand, or it can be that they go back and send it to you digitally. Both are great. It is great to have the digital, just from the standpoint that if you start with the digital, then you're kind of already in that. And whenever things happen, if you're out of town or if somebody gets ill or whatever, then you have the ability to be able to do the documents quickly. You know, some people don't think about this, but sometimes quick is essential. Time, you know, there's a thing in real estate called time is of the essence. And it is so of the essence.
If
so
you didn't
many
get that in
times.
2020, you definitely missed the memo.
Yeah. So like sitting and waiting to get a signature, you know, I mean, when I first started, we would literally have to write the contract, get the signature, deliver it to the other agent. They would take that in 4 copies. Why 4 copies? They would take that to their person. They would redo it. They would take that, bring it back to us. We would it would go back. It could take forever to negotiate a deal. And then now it's like literally you can do this and it's a done deal. So it's great for both sides because you can have it signed, sealed, delivered, and it's done.
And I kind of do it with each client. It depends on their personality. If they are somebody that like wants to have a newspaper every day and they really, you know, want to go over everything, a lot of times we'll sign it all in person, but then I get them set up for extra initials and extra signatures through Dotloop. So I don't have to keep running over there.
Changed since the pandemic? It has really changed. I have some of those, but so many of the people that were that way before, they've gotten so used to doing things digitally that
I had somebody, his wife had to set up a Gmail account for him because he didn't even have an email.
Right.
And how Dotloop works is if you're sending it to 2 people who own the house, each
Isn't
of them
that
have to
weird?
have an email
How many people
address.
have one email?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was a couple that had one email. I was like, nope, we got to have a second email. Unless you want me to run over to Grove every time we have to sign paperwork.
And sometimes you run over to Grove. You do. And that's fine. I mean, it is meeting clients where they are and doing it the way they are. But the digital thing has been a huge time saver for everybody. And let's face it, not everybody wants you coming to their house 15 times. They
Yeah.
would really like to just be able to do it or sit and look at it and talk and discuss without me sitting there at the table going.
And it
Yeah.
has the timestamp on there. So a lot of times we forget what the date is. And
They
you know,
say
we'll-
it's actually more secure, that it's somebody's signature. There's more digital tracking than you can, whether somebody's hand signature is theirs or not.
Yes. So dot dot loop is what we use. I know there's DigiSign and some others out there. Luckily, our brokerage pays for us to have dot loop.
yeah,
I
and
love
it's
it.
really great, and it's kind of universal.
Yeah. Okay. So you
photos are next.
Oh yeah, but thank you. Oh, staging first.
Oh, sorry. Staging is next.
And if you haven't cleaned yet, you better clean now. But staging, and we've talked about this in some other podcasts about getting your house ready, but it really is important to have it. And somebody actually just said this to me today, and I'm like, that's the house I'm looking for. It needs to look like a VRBO. Airbnb. It needs to look someplace when people look at the pictures go, oh, I want to stay there. And you don't necessarily see a lot of touches from whoever lives there. It's clean. You can see the house. You're not looking at all the stuff.
Yeah.
And generally your agent, I mean, I'm doing this Thursday. I'm going to somebody's house because they're just so overwhelmed with the staging process. And I said, no, I'll come help you stage. That's easy. I've never not sold a house because there are boxes of things in the garage.
Yeah, it's kind of like getting ready for a date. I mean, it is like you're getting ready for a date. Like you don't go on a date looking like a slouch. And if you do, you're probably going to not get a second date. But, you have a little bit better chance of getting a second date if you look pretty good, and look.
Unless you're on Love is Blind.
Yeah, and you don't want to, but then again, you don't want to try to be something you're not in order, and I think that's with the house. Sometimes people tend to try to make it into like, it is what it is. Don't try to make it into something completely different, but make it shine the best that it can, for sure. And then the difference between decorating and staging is really important. Decorating is personalizing. Staging is generalizing. So that's, and it's kind of, there's a little bit of middle ground there because you do want it to feel cozy and like, maybe throw a book somewhere, but like, everyone has their own opinion, and I'm a little weird this way, but I do not like a table set. I don't.
Oh, I don't either.
I think it looks like grandma's house.
Yeah.
For Thanksgiving. I just don't like it. Now, I've seen some that were great, but it's like some of that gets to be a little bit much to me. I mean, I think it should be a little bit more like I'm actually in someone's house who lives there. Because the other thing, too, is people are looking for the house they're going to live in.
Right.
And living in is aspirational, but at the same time, if it feels like I don't think I could, sit here.
You don't want it to be sterile, I think. And there are two types of staging. One would be where you live in your house and we are getting it ready to put its best foot forward. Another option is if you have an empty house, there are different levels of staging you can do.
Yeah.
Sometimes if the seller doesn't want to pay for a professional stager to come in, highly recommend a professional stager. But if they don't, I have little things like towels in the bathroom and a centerpiece, over the fireplace, or little things that I can set around that just make it feel a little bit more at home, a little more homey.
Yeah, I have a mixed feeling about that because I also think there are some houses that if they're sort of like, if they echo new construction but they're newer construction, then getting them really, really clean and really pristine but just looking new can be really nice too. I mean, I think it just depends on the house a little bit, like if it needs that little bit of warmth or if it doesn't.
And that's where your agent can really guide you.
And that's
on that.
exactly. And it really, what it comes down to too is even photos. So let's morph into photos.
Perfect.
Photos and showings are two different things too. Like, if people say, well, what can I do before they come to take the photos? First and foremost, get rid of your toothbrushes, your hairspray, all the stuff that makes it look like any personal hygiene kind of stuff. In the showers, I try to get all the shampoo and all that kind of stuff out. You can put it under
I tell them to put it in a caddy.
And put it in the closet or put it under the sink. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like anything that makes people feel like they're stepping into somebody else's. You're wanting them to see themselves in the house, not you in the house. and that kind of stuff just makes them feel a little icky or like
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah. So I think that's a really big one. But then whenever you're showing the house, that isn't something it doesn't register that way. It's just when people are studying it, they tend to zoom in and look at that kind of stuff. And I just think it's a good trick.
Absolutely.
Toilet seats down in pictures.
And I can't count how many times somebody has called me, just put an offer in on a house the other day. They saw the pictures online, said, that is it. We walked in the door and they immediately said, we're putting in an offer.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the pictures were so beautiful and it was exactly like the house looked but I mean, they were sold the moment they saw the pictures.
Yeah. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Like, there's some houses that, let's face it, they photograph a lot better than they are. And there are some houses that just don't photograph that are great. So it's, you got to get people in the door. But the thing we're doing in the photos, we're getting people in the door. We're not really trying to sell it from the beginning. We're trying to get people in the door. And
Yes.
that's like, if a picture looks really great, but the toilet looks like it's 15 foot wide because you did such a wide angle lens, don't use that picture.
Don't use an iPhone for pictures either. And I love my iPhone and I take lots of photos.
Listen,
but I do not take house photos with that.
I mean, I kind of wish we could go back because we pay so much for photos.
It's
but
ridiculous.
I remember when the iPhone really was big and came out at the beginning, and we as agents were taking our pictures because, I mean, that was a big step up for us at that time. How many of the pictures for the primary photo had the side of the window from the car in the picture? I mean, it's so funny because it was like you just sit in the car and go, ding, 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 and that was that was our big high tech exterior photos. Now it's like drones and parades and
let's talk about some of that stuff because
the drones are a great thing
because so many people. They don't necessarily buy the house from what they see online, but it definitely gets them in the door and more likely to make an offer. So you have photos. You have what I love is the twilight photo. And it's a digitally enhanced picture that just shows the house at night, even though it's taken during the day.
Yeah, they look like storybook pictures.
Yeah, they
but
really do.
Yeah,
I love them. I swear. They at least make you click through to the second picture. And then there's drones, so you can get pictures from above,
which are so good because then you can see the layout of the yard. You can see even where the air conditioning units are. I mean, it's great for perspective in the neighborhood. How what are the houses next door? What do they kind of look like, and how do they compare? I mean, do
they have ponds in the neighborhood? What does the entrance look like? You can also do videos, and there's two different ways you can do that. You can do it the landscape way. Of something you would put more on YouTube. So I do those to keep a library on YouTube, but you can also do something called reels where you shoot them this way. They're very short. Maybe you show like a hidden pantry in a house or what it's like to walk in the door and walk up to the fireplace.
So you can get real and get reels.
You can get reels with reels.
Let's get real and get reels. I love reels.
So that's another one.
And you know what? Really, this comes down to it's a voyeuristic. This has become such a voyeuristic. I always compare it to this. Like how when you go walking in your neighborhood at night in the evening, and like it's getting dark, but it's not dark, and everyone's lights are on in their house, and it's like it's for some reason at that time of day when everybody's walking, it's perfectly acceptable for everybody to just stare into each other's homes, and like people just stare into each other's homes, and
I like that painting. That's
an understanding. I had someone actually, this just creeped me out, but it was kind of a compliment, I guess. But one of my neighbors one time when I was out, and she goes, I really like that painting better that you had over your barn. I'm like, you've never been in my house. I mean, but they walk by or drive by, and it was like, and I had changed the thing, and it was the one right at the outside window that people would walk
awesome.
in. Hey, evidently, I moved it back for her. I didn't.
A couple of other things now with iPhones, your camera crew can come in and get the floor plan of your house.
Be careful with that though, because the measurements on those are they're not great.
I usually don't include the measurements. I only include the measurements if I've had an appraiser come through and
certified appraiser.
Yes. And then we actually, if we use an appraiser's numbers, we have to put that in with the disclosures on MLS. But with this, I don't show any numbers, but at least you know the layout. Hey, are the kids' rooms on the same side as the adult rooms? You know, does it have a
it's
game room?
great. It is great.
How does the game room
And in
compare to the living
Texas, you
room?
have to have the floor plan, I think. I don't know
Oh,
if you have
really?
to, but it's standard to have the floor plan. I kind of wish we would do that because I think it's really good. I wish you had to have filed every time you did changes with the
Mhm.
city, because then there's so many houses you go, what was this originally?
Yeah.
It'd be nice to that's just my
To see.
geeky historically wanting to know. But
And then the last one, and if you think your house might be something that out of state buyers would like, I love Matterport. And it's
yeah, it's gonna be great.
basically you can walk on your screen, you can punch and just walk virtually
Mhm.
through the house and every room and sort of get a feel of what everything looks like from your computer.
Do you know I actually own stock in the company Matterport?
Do you?
I do, because they are mapping digitally all the buildings in the United States over time. And so when we go into the metaverse or whatever, then it's going to be Matterport is going to be the go-to for the digitally living in. Yeah,
I need to buy some stock
it's really
in
inexpensive
Matterport
right now. I've lost a lot of money on it because I bought it a little higher, but I do believe in it. I do
Oh,
think
yeah,
it's really
that's great.
cool. And it really is. You literally feel like you can. I mean, I've used it a lot in new construction for like a model of house where you can kind of say this plan, this is, what you can expect. And the only problem you have to really make sure is on that, like we changed how we did the refrigerators, and then we couldn't use that Matterport anymore because it didn't really represent the model. But they're great. I mean, they
Yeah.
really are good. I don't think they're always necessary, but boy, they can really help a lot, especially for a weird floor plan.
That
It's
you can't
hard
really
to
figure it
really
out.
until you kind of go through it. Then yeah, it makes a big difference. It was great during the pandemic when people couldn't go
Oh, yeah.
tour houses like they can now.
And I did a ton of virtual open houses on Facebook.
Yeah, those are great.
Facebook Live, and that turned out to be great. Okay, we explained that. All right, how showings are set up.
Yeah, it's not a big mystery, but excuse me. Wow, sorry. We're getting real.
Nothing like live.
No, whenever I first started, believe it or not, when I first started, you had them call the seller because it was so hard to get a hold of people that
No cell
it kind
phones.
of took that out of the formula of you call them and then call me back and then call them and call me back. And so you directly called them and you asked if you could show the house between such and such time. And the only problem with that is that then the buyer or the buyer's agent and the seller started talking a lot, and sometimes maybe the seller would say a little too much information, or
Yeah.
because people are trying to be really honest. Sometimes people say things they really shouldn't,
And
that
hurt
was
somebody's feelings, or
or not even just, hurt their house. I mean, like,
Yeah.
saying something that is just kind of like, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's like we tend to be self-deprecating about things and
Yeah.
and apologize for things that don't need apology, but then suddenly that person sort of takes that on. So anyway, so that kind of went away, and then it got to where you would call the agent. They would call the seller and they would set up the appointment. Now we have what's called showing time, which most people use.
I love me some showing time.
It's really great because it's an online scheduler, and
Only for agents, so if
Only for
somebody's
agents.
scheduling, they are.
but I can see if
realtor.
others have been scheduled, so I know like what's available, and then you can click on that and you can request it, and then that goes to us, and then we get a hold of the client. So it's sort of the same thing like we used to do when we would get called. The process is the same, except now there's kind of like we're not trying to play patrol with timing because people wouldn't already know. And so it's kind of really made it easier for the seller because you used to would say, well, can I see it between 2 and 3? I've already got somebody seeing it between 2 and 3, and then they have to go back to their buyer. So now it's like it's made it very, very simple.
It's kind of like Calendly. If you want to book an appointment with somebody, you can go on and you can see what times are available.
Yeah, it's really efficient.
Some agents have showing time go directly to their clients. I don't do that just because if we're getting 10 different showings, I mean, that's a lot for them to keep up with. So I like to know which agents are going so I can follow up. I want to know who's there when. And then the second part of that is we have, at least here in Oklahoma, we have lock boxes that work off of apps on the phone.
Yeah.
So
great.
not only do I know when they're scheduled to be there, but I get an alert on my Central Lock. Isn't that what we have?
Yep.
On my Central Lock app that says, okay, they've now walked in.
And we can do remote codes. We can do different things for different situations. We can change when people are allowed in, when they're not. I mean, it's really given us a lot more control to the safety of the seller.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's some great systems. But the most important thing is that's a background thing. You're going to get a call from your agent, or you're going to get a notification, and you have to okay it. And then the big question: should I be there?
Oh,
Should I be there? No.
no. The
No,
answer
don't be
is
there.
not only no, but hell no.
Yeah, it's really not good to be there.
Oh.
And I know everyone thinks that they can show their house better than anybody else and explain things.
You cannot.
But you can't. I mean, it's just it. I think in principle it sounds great, but it just doesn't work well. It's people say too much. They just do, and they try to over-explain, and they point things out that they've never liked, not even realizing they're doing it, instead of pointing out the things that are great about the house. So it's just not the best plan. Now, when it comes to animals, it's a mix. I mean, it really is. If you can keep your animals in some kind of a kennel that they're safe and they don't bark incessantly, and that can work. Honestly, it's the best if you can do it where the animals aren't there, because not all people are animal people. That's just the way it is.
I've done it when this worked, especially when things were so busy, 20, 21, 22. I would say, okay, it's going live on a Thursday. Then they would plan their vacation for when we're doing that. Even if it was a local hotel, they take all the kids and the pets. And from Thursday through Sunday, we would have showings all day Thursday. Then their open house from 2 to 4 on Sunday. And they know they can come back by 7 o'clock on Sunday. The bulk of those showings are out of the way, and hopefully we have an offer by then.
Yeah, I had a cat years ago and it was a feral cat that I found as a kitten, and so I was like everything to Lucky. She loved me, but she hated everybody else. I mean, hated them. And I would have people, when I first went to sell my house, I was not an agent at that time, and I would the people would say, well, I'm a cat person. And I'd come home and their card would be in the middle of the entry floor. And then I'd call and they'd go, we didn't make it in the house. Your cat scared everyone to death, and I'm a cat person. So I ended up having to put her in my car and drive around, and she would cry like, wah, wah. I couldn't even park because it sounded like I was murdering somebody in the van. So I know it's not easy always, and I know that sometimes you just can't. But if you can, it really is good. And also cats are interesting because you can't necessarily put them in a kennel, and some of them dart out. So you just have to play that by ear and work with your agent on that.
And if somebody does leave it, particularly a cat there that I know is loose in the house, I will usually put that in the realtor notes. By the way, there's a cat. Please don't let it out.
Yeah. That always makes me so nervous because I'm like, did I see it? Did I not see it? Because cats are so sneaky. So, yeah.
So I'm going to give a little bit of my secret sauce for the agents out there. And I don't know if this is what you do, but I started it during the pandemic, and it has worked really well. And some agents do not like coming soons. And if you don't like them, that's fine. I totally understand. But what I love to do is get all the pictures and the marketing done during 1 week. Then the following Monday or Tuesday, that house goes what's called coming soon.
Okay.
Then it goes live on MLS on Thursday. And then Sunday we do an open house if the owner wants to do an open house. What the coming soon is it goes on MLS where agents can see it, but it does not go live on what Zillow and Realtor.com and all that are scraping off of MLS. So basically, I'm giving agents a heads up.
So you're accumulating showings in a schedule, so then it's like you just knock them out of the park.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the goal is if we go Monday or Tuesday, then we're live Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We already have showings set up, and then Sunday an open house if that's what the seller wants to do. Yeah. So that's what I try to do in a perfect world.
I can see that, and I think I know some companies are doing the firm exclusive, which is I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that.
The
But-
only reason I do a firm exclusive is because I usually sign paperwork in a perfect world
Mhm.
during 1 week. Then I'm doing pictures and all the marketing and staging the next week.
Mhm.
And then it's going live the following week. Well, you have to have it on MLS from them signing the contracts within 48 hours.
Mhm.
So I do a firm exclusive between them. So I'm staying compliant with it not going directly on MLS.
I know there's some companies that are really, saying how great that is. And I think I can see there's some part of that, but I think, I'm sort of old school in some ways, and I want people bidding the house if that's possible.
And a firm exclusive, what that means, it used to be called a pocket listing, but it just means that, we as Chenoweth
and it can be
Cohen,
nice because you maybe don't really want to deal with being on the market and, those kind of things.
Don't want your neighbors
But
to
I think
know.
you have to just know that you're sacrificing how many people potentially are going to live your house.
So that agent can only advertise it to other agents within their firm. I've done that sometimes during the holidays as a firm exclusive till after the holidays, and then we go live. The other thing to know, besides firm exclusive being only within a firm, once it hits coming soon until it goes live, no one can go in and see that house.
Yeah, that's important.
And I really drive that home with the homeowners. I'm like, I don't care who wants to come over and have a glass of wine to see your house. They can't come over.
It's also to keep agents from trying to get all the both sides, like exclusively trying to, and that's in the best interest of the client is the reason that is. So.
But anyway, so for agents out there, or even if you're a homeowner, that's something that I've done that I've really liked. So your house is on the market. How long do you decide before you make some price adjustments?
I think that completely depends on the market and what your agent, like you really want to have that conversation. I think you should have that conversation maybe even in the listing process of what is the expectation of when we need to make the adjustment? Why are we pricing it at this price? Are we pricing it because we think that we're at the bottom of the market and we maybe hope we could get some bidding going on? Are we pricing it high so we think maybe we'll get some people, don't leave money on the table? I mean, whatever that is, it's different ways different people do it and different strategies. But with that in mind, what is it going to, like, let's say we're going under the market and we're going to wait till we want to get somebody a bidding war going and you don't have anything for 2 weeks. That's a pretty good indicator that maybe you were wrong. And then if you're pricing it, I don't like the strategy anymore because people do not want to do this. But I mean, buyers don't come in and offer on things like they used to.
No.
So pricing it really high, hoping somebody will come in and offer you something, and then you want to find that sweet spot as much as you can.
And Oklahomans are so nice. They don't really want to offend you. If you think your house is worth $500,000, a lot of people won't come in and offer $475,000, even though that's what the comps show.
People all over the country. It just seems like that is like people want the price to be more. I think it's also they want you to be in the realm of reality before they start negotiating. So.
And when I have a client who's like, my house is absolutely worth this, I will tell them, then we have 2 weeks. If we have no showings, which is probably going to happen, then they know we need to do some kind of price adjustment. And sometimes it's good to know that when somebody does a price adjustment, for anybody who's been watching your property agents or anybody who's been watching it on Zillow, it sends out an alert on your house that you have adjusted the price.
Yeah, so it'd be a good way to get people's attention.
So sometimes
also
when they go,
hot sheet,
it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe I am interested. They have.
And I'm an advocate for sweet spotting, like taking it down, and holding for a minute, see what happens. It's like you hit that price, it's the right price, and you get the action. I mean, it is because it's also people search the internet based on 5,000 or 15,000 or whatever increments, and so if you're searching for 200 and up, and your house has been at 199, they're searching up to 200 and you've been at 205, and then you come down to 200, suddenly you're in their search.
Right.
So you really want to be kind of looking at getting into those searches as much as possible.
And it is a little uncertain.
That's also why
$99
isn't as good a strategy as people think, because you want to start somewhere. Like if somebody's starting at 200 and going up to 200 at 199, you're not getting them when they're starting there.
I always tell my clients that because it's such a great.
It works well with toothpaste, but it's not great with houses.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so
basically we're up down to the negotiation part now. I think the the next one we should do is go through that whole negotiation process.
Yes. So the next thing would be when you get an
When
offer.
you get an offer, yeah, that's like its own.
So let's do that next week.
Yeah.
We'll pick up with when you get an offer and how to handle multiple offers, how to handle lowball offers, and what that process, what you're going to go through after that
Right.
until you make it to the closing table.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
See y'all next week.
All right. See you then.
Bye, guys.
Bye.